Welcome back to the Emma International Deep Dive Podcast. I'm Anna.
And I'm Eric. Today's topic is one that is already making waves across life sciences, tech, and investment communities. And it's something we've been watching closely from both a regulatory and quality systems perspective.
We're talking about the recent announcement that Eli Lilly and Nvidia are investing up to $1 billion in a co-innovation AI lab focused on drug discovery and development.
This collaboration was unveiled earlier this year at the J.P. Morgan Healthcare Conference and highlights a shift in how pharmaceutical R&D is being structured, moving from isolated molecule-by-molecule progress into a digital AI-driven model that could fundamentally reshape discovery timelines, risk management, and operational requirements.
But beyond the headlines and the big dollar figure, what does this really mean for life sciences companies? How does this type of partnership change expectations around regulatory strategy, quality infrastructure, data management, and even inspection readiness? And how do providers like Emma help companies navigate that transformation responsibly?
To unpack all of that, we need to start with what Lilly and Nvidia are actually trying to do.
This isn't just a branding exercise. The partnership is built around a co-innovation lab in the San Francisco Bay Area that will bring together Lilly's drug discovery expertise with NVIDIA's AI and accelerated computing platforms, including the BioNeMo AI platform and next-generation Vera Rubin computing architecture.
The lab is designed to operate as a continuous learning system, a closed loop in which computational models and wet lab data inform each other in real time. In practice, that means AI models will generate hypotheses about promising molecular targets. Robotics and automation may execute high-throughput experiments, and results will be fed back into the models to refine predictions.
If this sounds like a departure from traditional drug discovery, heck it is. Historically, pharma R&D has been linear and resource intensive with experiments planned weeks or months in advance. AI-enabled discovery promises to prioritize experiments, suggest modifications, and accelerate optimization in ways that would have been unimaginable even a few years ago.
The promise is clear: reduce discovery timelines, cut costs, and ultimately bring more effective therapies to patients faster. But from a regulatory and quality perspective, the shift raises immediate questions.
For example, what does it mean when AI is deeply embedded into decision making? Regulators will want to understand how models are validated, how data integrity is maintained across AI workflows, and how human oversight is exercised when predictions drive experimental direction. This isn't academic. It affects documentation, audit trails, risk management, and inspection readiness.
It's also important to recognize that this model doesn't just aim to speed discovery. The plan is to explore how AI can impact later stages too: clinical development, manufacturing scale-up, and potentially even commercial operations.
From Emma's perspective, those downstream implications are where regulatory and quality complexity really starts to accumulate. Moving from hypothesis to clinical candidate is one thing. But once AI driven decisions influence batch records, process controls, or risk assessments in GMP environments, companies need systems that can reconcile algorithmic outputs with regulatory expectations.
This is where governance and validation frameworks become essential. You can't simply layer AI on top of old processes and expect compliance. Models, data pipelines, decision logic, and human review practices must all be documented, controlled, tested, and maintained with the same rigor as traditional method or equipment validation.
And that's not a trivial exercise. It ties directly into how companies think about change control, data integrity, computerized system validation, and audit readiness, areas where Emma works with clients every day.
Another regulatory dimension relates to data provenance and lineage. In traditional discovery, individual experiments and instruments are often the source of truth. In an AI-driven ecosystem, truth becomes distributed across databases, models, and automated workflows. Regulators will expect clarity on where data comes from, how it's transformed, and who has access to modify or interpret it.
Then there's the question of inspection readiness. If the next generation of drug discovery involves AI models trained on millions of data points and informed by autonomous feedback loops, how do inspection teams evaluate that? What artifacts are produced? What documentation supports decisions? These are not hypothetical questions. They're emerging now where AI is being piloted in regulated settings.
And it's not just Lilly. Other major players are investing in AI capabilities, and regulators around the world are starting to signal that they expect companies to describe not just outcomes, but how these systems are controlled and governed.
So when we talk about this $1 billion bet between Nvidia and Eli Lilly, we're not just talking about technology. We're talking about the future of regulated innovation, how decisions are documented, how systems are validated, how quality frameworks adapt, and how regulatory strategy evolves to support a new paradigm.
And that's why this announcement matters far beyond the press releases. It's a case study in what's coming next for life sciences, and it's a conversation all organizations need to be thinking about now.
If we zoom out for a moment, what makes the Eli Lilly and Nvidia partnership so significant is not just the scale of investment, it's the signal it sends to the broader industry.
When a major pharmaceutical company commits up to $1 billion to AI infrastructure, it reframes AI from an experimental add-on to core operational infrastructure. That shift has immediate regulatory and quality implications.
AI stops being a pilot project and becomes part of the validated environment.
And once AI touches regulated decision-making, everything changes.
One of the first areas companies must address is governance. Who owns the AI models? Who validates them? Who determines when retraining is required? And how is model performance monitored over time?
In a traditional GMP setting, equipment is qualified, processes are validated, and systems are periodically reviewed. AI models require similar discipline, but the validation paradigm is different. You're not validating a static process. You're validating a dynamic system that learns and adapts.
That creates regulatory complexity.
If a model evolves based on new data, at what point does retraining trigger change control? Does a performance drift require documentation? How is bias assessed? These are governance questions that must be defined before regulators ask them.
This is where Emma's digital data and AI advisory capabilities intersect directly with regulatory strategy consulting. We help clients design validation frameworks that account for algorithm lifecycle management, risk classification, and documentation standards aligned with FDA expectations.
Because while regulators may not yet have fully codified guidance for every AI use case, they are absolutely expecting structure, transparency, and accountability.
Data integrity is another cornerstone.
In the Lilly NVIDIA model, vast volumes of data will feed AI systems, genomic data, chemical libraries, experimental results, possibly real-world evidence. The integrity of those datasets becomes foundational.
ALCOA principles still apply. Data must be attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, and accurate. But now that data flows across computational pipelines and automated environments, maintaining those principles requires strong system architecture and access controls.
This is where computerized system validation and software QMS infrastructure become critical. AI platforms cannot exist outside the quality ecosystem. They must be embedded within controlled environments that include audit trails, role-based access, validation protocols, and cybersecurity safeguards.
And then there's inspection readiness.
Imagine an FDA inspector reviewing a drug candidate that was prioritized using AI. They may ask, how was this model trained? What data informed its predictions? What human oversight was applied before advancing the molecule?
If an organization cannot answer those questions clearly, it creates risk, not because AI is unacceptable, but because opaque systems are.
That's why companies adopting AI at this scale need integrated quality and risk management frameworks. Risk assessments must include algorithm performance risk, data bias risk, and system failure scenarios. Those assessments should not live in isolation. They should feed directly into CAPA systems, deviation management, and ongoing monitoring.
From a broader business perspective, partnerships like Lilly and Nvidia also affect manufacturing and tech transfer.
If AI significantly accelerates discovery, downstream functions must be prepared for faster handoffs. CMC strategy, process development, validation planning all must be ready to move at a different cadence.
This is where Emma's operational excellence and engineering and validation support services become essential. When discovery timelines compress, validation cannot lag behind. Equipment qualification, PPQ planning, and facility readiness must be strategically aligned with accelerated pipelines.
There's also a global regulatory angle.
Lilly is a global company. Any AI driven approach to discovery or development will eventually intersect with EMA, MHRA, PMDA, and other regulatory bodies. Consistency across submissions becomes critical.
Regulators may not ask identical questions, but they will all expect transparency around how AI influences decision making. Global regulatory and compliance advisory becomes a strategic necessity in this context.
Another layer to consider is talent and workforce readiness.
AI labs require cross functional expertise. Data scientists, regulatory professionals, quality engineers, computational chemists. Organizations must ensure that teams understand both the technical and regulatory implications of these systems.
This is where workforce scaling and professional services support can bridge gaps. Contingent labor models and regulatory specialists help companies integrate new technology without overwhelming existing teams.
And perhaps most importantly, this partnership signals that AI is moving from theoretical benefit to measurable infrastructure.
When AI becomes embedded into drug discovery, regulatory agencies will not treat it as experimental forever. Expectations will formalize, guidance will evolve, inspection practices will adapt.
Companies that proactively design governance and validation systems now will be far ahead of those who wait for explicit regulation.
From Emma's perspective, this is the inflection point.
AI in life sciences is no longer about proof of concept. It's about compliance by design. It's about integrating innovation with quality systems from day one.
The Lilly Nvidia collaboration is not just about building a powerful AI lab, it's about redefining how regulated innovation happens.
And for life sciences organizations watching this unfold, the question is no longer whether AI will influence their operations.
It's whether their regulatory and quality frameworks are prepared for it.
As AI becomes embedded into discovery infrastructure, one of the most important shifts we're going to see is in how regulators evaluate systems during inspections.
Historically, inspections in R&D environments have focused on data integrity, documentation practices, laboratory controls, and protocol adherence. But when AI models influence experimental design, compound prioritization, or even clinical candidate selection, inspectors will naturally expand their scope.
They won't just ask what decision was made, they'll ask how the decision was made.
That distinction matters.
If a compound was advanced because an AI model predicted favorable properties, regulators may want to understand the validation of that model, the data it was trained on, and how outputs were reviewed before execution. Human oversight becomes a key theme.
No regulator is expecting perfection, but they are expecting explainability and control.
Explainability, in particular, is a major regulatory conversation around AI. Black box systems that cannot articulate why a recommendation was generated present challenges in regulated environments. Companies must be able to demonstrate that model outputs are interpreted, reviewed, and documented within defined governance structures.
This doesn't mean every line of code needs to be disclosed. It means risk classification and validation documentation need to be proportionate and clear.
From Emma's standpoint, this is where enterprise quality and risk management frameworks evolve. Risk registers may soon include AI system performance risk. Internal audits may expand to include algorithm lifecycle management.
Organizations that proactively incorporate AI oversight into their QMS will be better positioned than those treating AI as an isolated innovation team initiative.
There's also the matter of change management.
AI models are not static, or they improve over time. They may be retrained with additional data sets. Performance metrics may shift. That dynamism must be reconciled with controlled environments.
When is a model update considered a minor adjustment versus a significant change? Does retraining require revalidation? Does it require documentation updates or regulatory notification?
These are questions companies must answer internally before regulators do.
Strong change control processes will need to define thresholds for algorithm updates, performance deviations, and retraining events. That requires collaboration between data science teams and regulatory professionals, a bridge that doesn't always naturally exist.
Another emerging dimension is cybersecurity.
High performance AI environments, especially those leveraging cloud infrastructure and advanced computing architectures, increase exposure to cyber risk. In regulated industries, cybersecurity is not only an IT issue, it is a compliance issue.
Data breaches, unauthorized model manipulation, or compromised data sets could have direct regulatory consequences.
Embedding cybersecurity controls into validation and QMS frameworks becomes essential.
Then there's scalability beyond discovery.
If AI accelerates molecule identification, the downstream impact on clinical operations and manufacturing becomes significant. Pipeline velocity may increase. Multiple candidates may move forward simultaneously.
That pressure affects CMC documentation, validation schedules, regulatory submission timing, and even facility capacity planning.
Organizations must assess whether their regulatory and operational infrastructure can handle increased throughput.
This is where Emma's integrated services model becomes relevant. Regulatory strategy, operational excellence, engineering and validation, and digital and data advisory must operate together. AI doesn't just change one function, it changes the entire lifecycle cadence.
Another consideration is cross functional training.
Executives and board members may understand the investment case for AI, but mid level managers and quality teams need education on how AI decisions are documented and controlled.
Without that understanding, gaps emerge. Teams may assume data scientists are handling validation. Data scientists may assume quality teams understand model governance. Clear ownership prevents these blind spots.
There is also a strategic investor relations angle.
Announcements like Lilly and Nvidia's signal to markets that AI capability is becoming a competitive differentiator. Investors increasingly expect companies to articulate not only AI adoption, but AI governance.
Demonstrating robust oversight, validation frameworks, and regulatory alignment can strengthen credibility in earnings calls and investor communications.
And finally, we need to acknowledge that regulatory guidance is evolving.
Agencies globally are studying AI in medical product development. Guidance documents, reflection papers, and pilot programs are emerging. While comprehensive AI frameworks may still be developing, expectations around transparency and documentation are already clear.
Companies that wait for final rules may find themselves retrofitting systems under pressure.
Those that implement compliance by design approaches now will adapt more smoothly as expectations formalize.
The Lilly Nvidia partnership is not an isolated event, it is a catalyst.
It signals that AI infrastructure is moving into the core of pharmaceutical R&D. It signals that accelerated computing and machine learning will shape how molecules are identified and prioritized.
And it signals that regulatory and quality frameworks must evolve in parallel.
The organizations that treat AI as infrastructure, not novelty, and integrate governance, validation, risk management, and inspection readiness from the beginning will define the next stage of compliant innovation.
Because the real transformation is not the billion-dollar investment.
It's the integration of AI into the regulated backbone of life sciences.
And that integration will require as much regulatory discipline as it does technological ambition.
As this partnership between Eli Lilly and Nvidia continues to unfold, what becomes increasingly clear is that the real impact will not be measured solely by faster discovery timelines. It will be measured by how successfully advanced AI infrastructure is integrated into regulated life sciences environments.
When AI becomes part of core R&D decision-making, it fundamentally changes how organizations must think about governance. Traditional validation models were designed for static systems and predefined processes. AI introduces adaptive behavior, probabilistic outputs, and continuous learning cycles. That doesn't make compliance impossible, but it does require a more intentional framework.
Organizations will need clearly defined oversight structures that determine how AI outputs are reviewed, documented, and approved. Human accountability cannot disappear simply because a model generated a recommendation. Instead, companies must establish documented decision pathways that demonstrate where algorithmic guidance ends and human scientific judgment begins.
This shift also raises important lifecycle management questions. AI systems are rarely static. They evolve as new data becomes available. That evolution introduces change management considerations that many companies have not yet fully defined. At what threshold does retraining require formal documentation? When does model refinement trigger validation updates? These are not purely technical decisions. They are governance decisions that must align with regulatory expectations.
Data architecture becomes another foundational consideration. In AI driven environments, data flows across multiple systems, from laboratory instruments to centralized repositories to computational pipelines. Ensuring traceability across those environments is essential. Regulators will expect organizations to explain not only what data informed a decision, but how that data was sourced, transformed, and controlled.
Inspection readiness therefore expands beyond traditional documentation review. Inspectors may ask how AI models are validated, how performance drift is monitored, and how risks are assessed over time. Companies that have predefined frameworks for these discussions will navigate inspections with greater confidence than those developing answers reactively.
This is where integration across functions becomes critical. AI initiatives cannot exist solely within data science teams. Regulatory, quality, IT, and operational leadership must be aligned from the outset. Without that alignment, organizations risk building technically advanced systems that are procedurally misaligned with compliance expectations.
Another important implication of this partnership is scale. $1 billion investment signals that AI is becoming infrastructure, not experimentation. Infrastructure level systems demand enterprise level governance. That includes defined ownership, standardized documentation practices, and structured risk management processes embedded into the quality management system.
As AI accelerates discovery, downstream functions will feel the impact as well. Increased pipeline velocity affects CMC strategy, validation scheduling, submission planning, and manufacturing readiness. If discovery timelines compress but regulatory infrastructure remains static, friction will emerge quickly.
Forward thinking organizations will assess whether their regulatory and operational capacity can absorb increased throughput. That includes reviewing staffing models, submission planning processes, and cross functional communication pathways. Growth in one area must not create vulnerability in another.
There is also a strategic reputational component. Public announcements of AI driven innovation create market visibility. With that visibility comes scrutiny from regulators, investors, and industry peers. Demonstrating disciplined governance strengthens credibility and reduces perceived risk.
Ultimately, the Lilly Nvidia collaboration represents more than a technological milestone. It represents a shift in how regulated innovation is structured. AI is moving from theoretical capability to operational backbone. As it does, Quality systems and regulatory frameworks must evolve in parallel.
The organizations that will succeed in this next phase are those that treat AI integration as a compliance transformation as much as a technological one. They will design validation strategies early. They will define change management thresholds clearly. They will embed data integrity controls deeply within system architecture.
Innovation alone will not define leadership in this space. Sustainable, compliant integration will.
The future of drug discovery may be increasingly computational, but it will remain regulated. The companies that recognize that dual reality, technological ambition paired with regulatory discipline will shape the next phase of life sciences.
And that is the broader implication of this billion-dollar AI investment. It signals where the industry is heading, and it challenges every organization to evaluate whether their governance, validation, and quality frameworks are ready to support it.
Thank you for joining us for today's deep dive. If your organization is exploring AI integration, strengthening your regulatory strategy, modernizing your quality systems, or preparing for inspection readiness in an increasingly digital environment, Emma International is here to help. You can reach us anytime at info@emmainternational.com or visit us at emmainternational.com.
Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and Spotify so you never miss an episode. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay innovative.